Welcome to Mom on Purpose, where it's all about helping moms overcome challenges and live their best lives. My hope is by being here, you're more inspired to become the mom you were made to be. I'm Natalie, your host, a wife, boy mom, dog mama, Chicagoan, and former lawyer turned professionally certified coach. If you're here to grow, I can help. Let's go. Hello, my beautiful friends. Welcome to the podcast. Today, we are talking about transitions, routines, and back to school. Before we dive in, just a reminder, if you have a question for me, I would love to answer it. Just call the podcast hotline at 8333-ASK-NAT. That's 833-327-5628. I would love to answer it on the podcast so you can get some free help and tools and coaching to help you navigate whatever challenge or goal that you are currently working on. That said, you can also email me. So today you're going to hear from someone who emailed in. This is available to you if you prefer. All you have to do is email the team at nataliebacon.com with your submission. Give as much detail as you're comfortable with and the question, and I will feature it here on the podcast if it's a good fit for, I think, a broader audience. And that is where today's question came in, which is, "Hi, Natalie. I'm struggling with back to school for my 3 kids who are all under 12 years old. I'm sad summer is ending and at the same time excited there's going to be a routine in place, but I'm also feeling anxious about it. I'm not sure what the right routine is for our family in this new school year. It feels very overwhelming with so much going on for each of my kids, as well as managing my own life, family, marriage, home, and on and on. I also want my kids to be successful and enjoy back to school too. I'm wondering if you have any strategies or tips to help with this time of year. Thanks so much for all that you do." All right, my friends. Yes, I have lots of strategies and tips, and this is a topic that I coach on a ton, specifically transitions. It doesn't really matter if it's transitions back to school or something else. We will talk about it specifically through that lens here, but I just want you to know that any transition you're going to find a lot of these tools will apply for, because the brain doesn't like transitions, because it's a shift from where you are now to something different. And your brain likes where you are now. It's in the habit of it. I like to remind myself of what Abraham Hicks says, which is the path of least resistance is the path you're already on. So whatever routine you're currently in, that's the easiest one to maintain. It takes a lot more prefrontal cortex brain power to shift into doing something new. It requires more energy. It requires more thought. Even if it's something that you want, it still comes with resistance. So one of my favorite ways of thinking about this is to expect resistance in the transition, to plan for all transitions to have some challenges. Now, this doesn't mean going into a negative mindset or doom and gloom. It just means that I like to think about it as this is a transition, and it's very likely that because it's something new and different, my brain is going to, have a hard time with it, at least in part, and that's okay. So I like to allow myself for there to be an adjustment period. It's just like bringing home a new baby where everyone is learning their new roles and getting used to the new way of being a family. It's the exact same with going back to school or any other transition. There's a period of learning new routines and settling in. And this, just put simply, is hard for the brain. But hard doesn't mean bad. You want to go back to school. You want your kids to go back to school. You want to embrace the new routines and fall. And just because it's hard doesn't mean something's gone wrong. So I think that's really important to remember. Hard doesn't mean bad. It just means hard. And maybe it's harder than you thought. I love that mindset for myself. Oh, I knew this was going to be hard, but it's actually harder than I thought. That is helpful because I don't make hard then mean bad. It's not like, oh no, this is harder than I thought and that's bad. It's, almost a little bit of surprise. Oh, this is harder than I thought, and that's okay. I want to also talk about the anxiety that you mentioned. I think that when it comes to anxiety about going back to school, transitioning into new routines and the fall, remind yourself that anxiety is a feeling that is okay to feel for you, for your kids, for anyone. Anything new in the future your brain has the opportunity to struggle with, to fear, and to create anxiety over. And this is just normal. It's the survival part of the brain trying to keep you alive, which was really helpful for evolutionary purposes, not as helpful today when we're talking about going back to school because your brain doesn't know that you're not going to die. So your job is to just manage the anxiety. And what I mean by manage it is to allow it, to process it. Inside the membership, we have an entire course on how to manage feelings, including anxiety. So you're going to befriend the anxiety. You're going to welcome it. You're going to name it. That way you create some separation. It's not that you are anxious or your child is anxious. It's that you feel the feeling of anxiety. And so you create some space between who you are and how you feel. And that's incredibly empowering, particularly with respect to feelings like anxiety or worry. One thing that I really like to focus on with respect to transitions that I am anticipating might be challenging, like back to school, is to remind myself of my role as mom. I like to think of myself as the Chief Culture Officer, the CCO in my home. And I like to treat being a mom like a high performance job. I set the tone and the attitude like a leader in a company. I like to think of myself as organized, and I shower and get dressed every day. I create a plan. I'm attentive. I'm respectful. I'm energetic. I'm solution focused, and I'm my family's number one cheerleader. That's sort of my mindset around this role, which is my job right now. And this means taking care of my emotions. It means practicing self-care. It means creating a plan and strategy for back to school. And I say this not because I want you to think that you have to do it this way, but inside the membership this month, I created a brand new class called Intentional Parenting. And I really love using the analogy of working in a corporate environment or some other high performance role and being a mom. And when you think about it in that way, it completely shifts your attitude, because the truth is, I don't want to feel like an overwhelmed, frustrated mom who's yelling at her kids, who's always struggling. Now, might there be days where I'm in my leadership role where I feel frustrated or I am struggling a little bit more? Absolutely. But it's the difference between this is my identity and I'm always like this versus, okay, from time to time, I feel a little bit of frustration. So if you're not in the membership, I definitely recommend getting in this month so you can get that class, because I go into it very in depth and I give you the tools and the skills and the practices that you can get started with to completely change your identity in this role. So I like to not only do this part, but also remind myself to evaluate myself based on my own standards, not based on my kids' success or lack thereof. So I think on default, what we do is we base whether we are being a good mom based on how well our kids are doing in school. So if you're thinking, if my kid doesn't transition well back to school, then I must be doing wrong. That is really disempowering because it ties your success to your kids' actions. It's unfair to you and it's really unfair to your kids. So separating that out, knowing that they may struggle, and if they do, you can support them, but not tying your worth and your value and your goodness to their outcomes is really important for both of you, so that your kids don't feel that pressure from you in an unhealthy, unhelpful way. And also so that you can validate yourself. And that's important just for you as a human being, but also so that you can show up for your kids in a supportive way and help them navigate any challenge that they're having. The difference, though, is in your approach, because if you tie their performance and their success to your goodness. So if you need your kids to do well transitioning back to school and make friends and, do well in their activities and get good grades, in order for you to think that you're doing a good job as a mom, you will put an unnecessary amount of pressure on them that they will feel, that teaches them that your love for lack of a better word, is conditional on their performance. And of course, this is not what you intend, but that is the way it will be perceived if they only get validation when they're doing really well. And if you're like freaking out when they're struggling, they're going to pick up on, this is way harder for my mom, and I don't feel the same type of love when I'm going through a challenge. And so that's where that people pleasing comes into play, and it's just inauthentic and it kind of decreases connection. So you can benefit greatly. Again, I teach this in the class this month with respect to creating your own standards for measuring your own success, just like it was a high performance job based on things you can control. And then when your kids are struggling or having a challenge with grades or with activities or with friends or transitioning, then you can show up for them very specifically, very much in a loving, confident, helpful way, but without the need for them to change in order for you to feel better. You can feel confident and loving and supportive and capable and help them navigate their challenge. It's not that you're happy they're having a challenge, but you're not tying your goodness to them overcoming this challenge. It's really important. So, kind of the bottom line for this mindset is that you measure your own effectiveness, your own leadership as a mom based on standards that are within your control. And I give you a ton of those standards. I think I have 10 this month in the class, but of course you can create your own. I give you the 10 that I use and that I like. The next part of this is taking that mindset of, okay, I am a leader in my home, and my job as part of being the leader is to be prepared. And that transitions into planning. So create a plan for the new routine that you want. This does take work up front. It can take hours and hours of looking at your GCal, of, putting things that you anticipate based on the school calendar that they gave you, putting all of those on your calendar, putting all of the activities on your calendar. It takes attention and time. And it's tedious. And I do this all of the time in my own life. And, it's always surprising to me how much time it takes. Like, I could spend 2 to 3 hours when I'm going through a transition to prepare my calendar to plan effectively. So for example, when I was planning my most recent maternity leave, it took hours. At least 3, maybe 4 hours of planning out every single thing that I was going to do to create my own maternity leave and when I was going to do it and putting things in different time slots. And, at the end of that process, I had this amazing plan, but at the same time, it kind of felt like, oh my gosh, that was like exhausting. That was like a lot of work. But you know what? I always think to myself, I'm so glad I did that. It is going to make the routine of the next few months so much easier and more effective and more helpful in our lives, and my life personally, professionally, and as a family. And so you can do that same thing for your kids' activities, for their school events, for your appointments, for anything that you can plan. Get organized ahead of time. Put the time to get organized and to plan on your calendar. And that is something that I cannot stress enough, because it will pay huge dividends. And this doesn't mean that you have to have the perfect right new routine at first. And I think this gets to what you said in your submission, which was, you're not really sure what the right routine is. So what I like to do is just give my best guess and test and find out. I'm constantly telling my clients, okay, we're just going to test and find out. So it's not like you need to have this schedule and routine down perfectly the right way, as if there is a right way. It's okay, based on the circumstances, based on my kids' activities, based on my life and my spouses and our families and all of the things that are happening. This is my best guess at a good routine for us and a good calendar for us and a good plan for us for this, half of the year, for this semester. And then you can reevaluate. So after 2 weeks, after a month, you might say, okay, we've done a month of this way. And what I'm noticing is that actually the after school routine needs to be adjusted a little bit, or the evening routine, or whatever it is, or the screen time, or however you're noticing there needs to be a change, then try a new way of doing it and test and find out if that works. The idea here is that you're doing it consciously. You're intentionally saying, okay, I'm noticing something that isn't working in our routine. So I'm going to test and find out if something else can work more effectively. And you're just like a scientist. You're just like someone who is in a leadership role in a company who's trying to figure out, the best way to, promote a new product or to get things submitted on time from her employees, whatever it is. It's not that there is this one right way to do it. It's that you have the mindset that you are going to intentionally try one way and then evaluate if it's working or not, and then try another way if you need to, if it doesn't work. This is really important because I think what we can do is we can put so much pressure on ourselves to have like this perfect new routine right away that everyone just adjusts to seamlessly. There's no resistance and it works really well. And then we can feel good about ourselves. And the truth is, it's so much different than that. The truth is that you will need to try lots of different ways potentially. And it's going to require some resistance because you have lots of different people in your family and different challenges and different activities and different things going on. And none of that means something's gone wrong. In fact, that is the way of it. It's supposed to be that way. Here are some of the mindset mantras that I love for transitions, particularly for transitioning in the fall and back to school. Number 1, I expect there to be resistance in the transition. Number 2, this is a period we're all adjusting to. Number 3, we will settle into this new routine. Number 4, I can test and find out what works well for our family. Number 5, my kids are supposed to have challenges. Number 6, I can support my kids and help them navigate their challenges as they arise. And number 7, I'm the chief culture officer of my home and I love setting an example of having a good attitude for the day. These are just 7 mantras that resonate with me. Use them, borrow them if they're helpful. You can also create your own mantras. So think about how you want to think about this transition, about routines. Think about it and then decide deliberately. I think that we often look to our circumstances to decide what to think, but I want to encourage you to look inward to you as a leader in your family and to decide what you want to think more deliberately without needing, your circumstances to be a certain way in order to have a good attitude or feel good or feel energized. You can create thoughts on purpose and practice them either in your journaling or just repeating them throughout the day. It really is life-changing. The next part of this I want to talk about is routines. So I love GCal for planning all of the activities, all of the appointments, all the meetings, all the school programs. I use G-Calendar. This is just Google Calendar for everything. I have no incentive to promote this other than my own usage of it. You absolutely can use any tool that works for you. The reason that I love it is because it syncs to all of my devices. So if I'm on my phone or I'm on my, iMac in my office, or I'm on my laptop, downstairs, or the iPad, GCal is connected to all of it. And then I can also use Google Calendar to sync other calendars. So we have a family calendar that my husband and I both share. And then I also have a separate work calendar within GCal that I use to put what I'm going to work on and when. And I, color coordinate it so that I can just visually see what's going on with respect to, maybe family activities versus work versus appointments, you name it. You can have any kind of calendar. I like that because I think it's easier to make a habit than a physical planner. I love a good physical planner or journal. I think they're like beautiful, particularly journals, because I don't need them to sync everywhere. I don't need to access them. But I will say the kind of pitfall of a written calendar is that it has to stay with you all of the time. And I think it's harder to move things around and adjust and to sync with other family members. I just find it more challenging to actually help my life be easier. So I think Google Calendar or any type of, online app calendar that you can use for the tool that can sync, that can make things easier is definitely the way to go. And we have all of these tools inside the membership. So right when you join, you get access to a time management and calendaring system that teaches you how to do the calendaring that I do. So if that's something you're looking for, I can absolutely help you with that inside the membership and then coach you on it for all of that added accountability. What I want to talk about here is thinking about your routines in a little bit different of a way. So you're going to use G-Calendar for all of the things, but I want you to have a strategy before you put things on your calendar. So what kind of weekly planning do you want to do? Do you want to have a family meeting every week? Do you want to review upcoming activities and appointments for the week with your spouse? Do you want to meal prep and grocery shop? What things do you want to do on a weekly basis? Just kind of jot down a few that would be really helpful for your family and list them as part of what you want to do in your weekly routine. Then the other category is daily routines. So you have your morning routine, your daytime routine, your after school routine, your dinner routine, and your nighttime routine. Now, we all do these anyways, but naming them out like this can be really helpful for you to identify what's working and what's not working. So for example, if you notice one of your kids is struggling with bedtime a lot and with screens, well, if you have something that you're looking at that has the routines separated out into morning, daytime, after school, dinner time, and nighttime, you might first try, putting the screen time in a different part of the day and see if that's helpful. I find that compartmentalizing the day in this way is really helpful for me to just show up as the mom who I genuinely want to be. So, with little ones, for me, that dinner time routine into the nighttime routine, that is a challenging one. And so knowing that ahead of time and knowing that meal prep and planning and the tasks that we have in a certain order, we always go on a family walk and all of those things. If I have that planned out, it makes it so much more seamless and enjoyable for everyone. It's like witching hour for the kids, and as mom and my husband as well, we can help our kids transition, even though we know that at least some of the days they're going to have meltdowns or be upset or whatever it is. It doesn't mean anything's gone wrong. It just means that, they're transitioning from, eating dinner to going on the dog walk is not something they want to do right now. And that's okay. We're still going to do it. But in my mind, if I know that that's because this is what I want for our family, and I think it's good for all of us to get outside and go on that walk, even if they don't want to, that keeps me in alignment with who I want to be instead of maybe questioning or doubting it based on my, one of my son's emotions in that moment. So again, this isn't to add in another routine. It's just a different way for you to think about the routine that you already have. So what's your morning routine? What's your morning routine for your kids? What's the daytime routine? Do your kids go to school? Do you work? Do you do home things? What are you doing during the day? After school for you and for your kids. It's like that late afternoon time. Dinner time. Are you cooking? Are you starting to cook in the after school routine? Are they helping? Are you meal planning? Are you not cooking? None of it is right or wrong, good or bad. It's just bringing more intentionality to the routine to make your life easier. Now, I know for some of you listening to this, you're like, oh my gosh, this is just more things to do. And the answer to that is both yes and no. It is more work up front, But the benefit is that it's fewer things down the road. So let's take meal planning. Whenever I meal plan and I grocery shop and I do all that ahead of time, it does take more brain power and more effort and more strategic thinking and all of that planning ahead of time. That takes more energy and effort. But then just by doing that in a couple of hours on a Sunday, Monday through Friday are so much easier versus, sometimes when I don't meal plan, I forget, or the day gets away from me and I don't do it. It's Wednesday at 4 and I have nothing planned and it's so much more stressful. And so I really focus on, for me, the benefit of the routines and reminding myself of that so that I do them. Am I perfect? No, but this is like the goal for me and my family. It's really helpful. The last category of routines that you might want to kind of sit down and just think about is household management. So who's doing the cleaning and the chores and the laundry? Do you have a nanny? Do you have tutors? Do you include your finances in the household management? And if you have cleaners or any other kind of support, or whoever is doing all of these things, having routines in place can be really helpful. And so just naming this as its own bucket outside of weekly routines and daily routines, this is like the household management routine, I think could be very powerful because it's easy for, I think, this category to get left behind. And before you know it, you're sort of behind on all of the things, whether that's laundry, whether that's, creating a budget, could be anything. All right, my friends, transitions, routines, back to school. That's what we're focusing on right now. Come inside the membership and get the intentional parenting class and all of the other classes that I referenced, the time management, the processing feelings. So you have the tools to support you, to support your family, to support your kids and your home and your spouse, all of it. I would love to coach you and teach you inside the membership. So join me over there and I will talk with you next week. Take care. Thank you for being here and listening. Now head on over to momonpurpose.com/coaching to learn more about the Mom on Purpose membership, where we take all of this work to the next level.